Welcome to the Virgin Sportscast. My name is Joshua Hervey. I will be talking about sports, and more sports because I love sports. So today I will be talking about some fantasy football index related articles. This article actually that I will be talking about today is on running backs. And there's some interesting stuff in it that I will be relaying to you. And then after that, there's a segment that I'm going to do every show called Don't Bet on It. In this segment, I'm going to predict the 32 team rankings and just how I feel it might go this year. And then after that, I will be telling you some information on those teams of players that you may or may not want to draft, or just if you're in a deeper league and you have to draft them, you might consider. So now I'll give you some interesting running back information from this running back article in Fantasy Football Index magazine. In this century, 65 running backs have started all 16 games and averaged 100 yards a game. Setting aside 3 of those running backs who retired, 27 of 62, or about 44%, started all 16 games, and 20 running backs, or about 30%, missed the last 4 games of that season, and 9 running backs, or about 15%, missed the last half of the season. That's pretty crazy. Now, when you get into age, this is an awesome age stat for you guys. And guys like Adrian Peterson's age, who is 28, tend to decline 15% from the previous year. And last year, he had 2,097 yards, and this year, it means he will have about 1,780 yards, which is still a very, very number one running back stud on your team. And guys, Doug Martin's age, who is 24, tend to decline about 24%. Now, this isn't including the reception yards either. Last year, he had 1,454 yards on the ground, which means this year he will have about 1,100 yards. Now, guys like Trent Richardson is even worse. Trent Richardson, who is 22, tend to decline about 33%. Trent Richardson had 950 yards on the ground last year, which means he's looking at roughly about 640 yards this year on the ground. That's crazy. I'm not going to say he's going to have 640 yards. I'm not saying he's going to be part of that 33% that's going to decline, but that's pretty interesting right there. That's an awesome nugget. So now I will be talking about some individual player stats. I will be starting with Arian Foster. Arian Foster had a down year last year. Arian Foster last year had James Casey, who was a tight end, blocking for him. James Casey was traded to the Eagles, and he stole some receptions from Foster. Now, this year, Houston has Greg Jones blocking for Foster. Greg Jones is similar to Vontae Leach and Lawrence Vickers. When Leach and Vickers played in 2010 and 2011, Foster averaged 42 receiving yards. And when Casey was playing last year in 2012, Foster only averaged 14 receiving yards a game. That's pretty crazy. Now, Foster also carried the ball 29 times by the goal line last year, which is 7 times more than any other player in the league. Now I will be talking about Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson came off of a leg injury going into last year, and he rushed for an amazing 2,097 yards. Of the 6 running backs that made it over 2,000 yards, none of them have ever achieved 1,500 yards the next year. The only 2 running backs, Barry Sanders and Chris Johnson, they are the only 2 to have come close to reaching that at 1,300 yards the next year. Now, here are some other running backs, like Trent Richardson from Cleveland. Of the 20 best rookie running backs, 6 of them came back and had a better year. Also, in short yardage situations to keep drives alive, he was 6 of 17, and of 35 running backs with 10 or more short yardage situations, he was tied for last with Michael Turner, who is now a free agent. Jamal Charles of Kansas City Chiefs, he led the league since 2010s in yards per carry with 5.8 yards. And in Reed's offense, he should double his receptions this year. C.J. Spiller of the Buffalo Bills. C.J. Spiller he had 12 runs of 20 yards or more last year, which was second in the league, and 9 receptions of 20 yards or more, which is the most of all running backs. Now, Stephen Ridley of the Patriots. I know a lot of you don't think of the Patriots as a running team, but check this out. Patriots are among the leaders every year in rushing touchdowns. And the past 3 years, the Patriots had a running back that scored 11 or more touchdowns every year. And Stephen Ridley last year had 12. Chris Ivory of the New York Jets. He was acquired or traded from the Saints. And of the 61 other running backs with 200 plus carries since 2010, only 3 have averaged more yards per carry. Jamal Charles, Adrian Peterson, and C.J. Spiller. He's better than Sean Green, and Sean Green had 2 back-to-back 1,000-plus seasons on the terrible Jets. Reggie Bush of the Detroit Lions, who was acquired to the Detroit Lions from Miami. Detroit running backs in the last 3 years have averaged 98 receptions. Rashard Mendenhall. Mendenhall is now in Arizona, and Bruce Arians is in Arizona. And under Bruce Arians, in 2009 and 2010, he had 2 1,100-yard seasons. That's quite an amazing stat. It's just a nugget for you if you are interested, if you're deep, if you need a running back. I know Arizona's offensive line is terrible this year. It's just a nugget for you. And now we will be going to the Don't Bet On It segment. Don't bet on it. Don't bet on it. This is a segment that I'll predict the future in any sport. Don't bet on it. Don't bet on it. If you lose your money, don't come crying to me that I told you wrong and that I'm a dong. Don't bet on it. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, this segment, Don't Bet On It, is the segment that I predict something crazy. And today, I will predict the rankings of all 32 NFL teams starting at number 32. I'm going to start from the worst and go to the best. Number 32, New York Jets. 31, Oakland. 30, Jacksonville. 29, Carolina. 28, Tennessee. 27, San Diego. 26, St. Louis. 25, Arizona. 24, Buffalo. 23, Kansas City. 22, Miami. And 21, Pittsburgh. 20, Cleveland. 19, Detroit. 18, Minnesota. 17, New York Giants. 16, Tampa Bay. 15, Cincinnati. 14, Dallas. 13, Chicago. 12, Houston. 11, Indianapolis. 10, Philadelphia. 9, Baltimore. 8, Washington. 7, New England. 6, New Orleans. 5, Green Bay. 4, San Francisco. 3, Atlanta. 2, Denver. And number 1, which I'm predicting that will win the Super Bowl, is the Seattle Seahawks. Now that is the Don't Bet On It segment. Don't bet on it. And now I will give you a rundown of the team's players, like QB, running backs, and wide receivers and tight ends, just so that way you know when upcoming draft, if you are like me and you like to know names of players that could emerge as some fantasy viable starters in the future, I'm going to give you some names. So we're going to start with the AFC East, and I will tell you about the Buffalo Bills first. Right now, it's Kevin Kolb at quarterback. But now check this out. They have E.J. Manuel, who they drafted this year in the first round. And he could emerge as a good quarterback. He might be starting by the end of this year. He might be starting at the beginning of the season. It's still preseason, week 3. So we have running back C.J. Spiller, who has got that start on lock. We have wide receiver Stevie Johnson. We have wide receiver TJ Graham. And then we have wide receiver Robert Woods. And then we have tight end Scott Chandler. Now we're going to go to the Miami Dolphins. They have Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. They have running back Lamar Miller. And then they also have Daniel Thomas in that backfield. And it's going to be a running back race. They don't know who's going to start. I think it's going to be Lamar Miller, but don't quote me on that. It is only preseason week 3. And then they have wide receiver Mike Wallace. They have wide receiver Brian Hartline. And then they have tight end Charles Clay, who replaced Dustin Keller, who is out for the season. Then they have New England Patriots. We have Tom Brady at the quarterback. And we have running back Stephen Ridley and Shane Vereen as the number 2, who will be playing, who will be getting some touches. Stephen Ridley will not get the ball all the time. We have wide receiver Danny Amendola. We have wide receiver Julian Edelman. And they also have a wide receiver, Kendrell Tompkins, also, who they like over some of their drafted wide receivers. And then they have Rob Gronkowski at the tight end, who's injured. So you might want to keep an eye out if you want to take a high flyer on a tight end at Zach Sudfeld, who is starting to light up preseason. I know they got destroyed by the Lions Thursday night, but just keep an eye out for Zach Sudfeld. And now the New York Jets. Mark Sanchez is the quarterback, but they did draft Geno Smith. So if you want to take a flyer on him late in rounds and hope he emerges above Mark Sanchez and becomes something great, then you can draft him if you want. Running back Bilal Powell is their starting running back as of right now, but they did add Chris Ivory into the backfield. Wide receiver Stephen Hill, wide receiver Jeremy Curley, and tight end Jeff Cumberland. Those are all probably names you may or may never have heard of before. And that is it for the AFC East. And now for the NFC East. We're going to start with the Dallas Cowboys. Quarterback Tony Romo. Running back DeMarco Murray. Wide receivers are Dez Bryant and Miles Austin. Tight end Jason Witten. New York Giants. Quarterback Eli Manning. Running back David Wilson and Andre Brown. Andre Brown is probably going to be the goal line guy there. And then we have wide receiver Victor Cruz, Hakeem Nicks, and if one of those two is injured, it will fill in Ruben Randall as wide receiver and Lewis Murphy. And then we have for tight end there, Brandon Myers. And then for the Philadelphia Eagles, we have quarterback Michael Vick. And you're going to want to know his backup in case he's hurt is Nick Foles. And then we have running back LaShawn McCoy, who got a concussion last year, and he is like a 1 in 6 chance of getting another concussion. So if he gets another concussion this year, Bryce Brown is his backup. And then we have wide receiver Deshaun Jackson. And then we have a wide receiver Riley Cooper. And then we also have Jason Avant there as a wide receiver still. And then we have tight end Brent Seelick. Washington Redskins. Quarterback is RG3. And I know he's coming off this leg injury. So if he gets hurt again, his backup is Kirk Cousins. And then we have running back Alfred Morris. We have wide receiver Pierre Garcon. Wide receiver Josh Morgan. And tight end Fred Davis. And now for the AFC West. I'm going to start with Denver Broncos. Peyton Manning at quarterback. We have running back Ronnie Hillman. But keep a close eye on Monty Ball. I think Monty Ball could have the job this year. Ronnie Hillman is just a better blocker in the backfield. And then we have wide receiver Demaryius Thomas. We have wide receiver Wes Welker. And we have Eric Decker also. And then we have tight end Joel Dreesen. And then with the Kansas City Chiefs, we have quarterback Alex Smith, running back Jamal Charles, wide receiver Dwayne Bowe, wide receiver Donnie Avery, and tight end Anthony Fasano. Of the Oakland Raiders, who are going to be terrible this year, which I predict, quarterback Matt Flynn, their running back is Darren McFadden, and their backup running back is Rashad Jennings. But Marcel Reese has been known to run the ball when Darren McFadden's been hurt. We have wide receiver Denarius Moore. We have wide receiver Rod Streeter. And we also have tight end Richard Gordon, which I have never heard of before. And then we have San Diego Chargers. We have quarterback Phillip Rivers, running back Ryan Matthews, and his backup this year is Ronnie Hillman. And then they did add Danny Woodhead to the team this year. And then we have wide receiver Malcolm Floyd. And we have wide receiver Eddie Royal. And then we also have Vincent Brown there. And then we have tight end Antonio Gates. And now we'll head to the NFC West. We're going to start with the Arizona Cardinals. The quarterback there is Carson Palmer. The running back there is Rashard Mendenhall. And the backup for Mendenhall is Ryan Williams. Wide receiver Larry Fitzgerald and wide receiver Michael Floyd. And they also have another wide receiver by the name of Andre Roberts. And tight end is Rob Hausler. San Francisco 49ers. Quarterback is Colin Kaepernick. Running back is Frank Gore. And LaMichael James might get a few carries this year as well. Wide receiver Kyle Williams. Wide receiver Anquan Bolden. And then they have tight end Vernon Davis. And then Seattle. A quarterback is Russell Wilson. Running back is Marshawn Lynch, and his backup, for all you people worried that he might get suspended sometime this year, his backup is Robert Turbine. However you want to call it, Turbine, Robert. Wide receiver Sidney Rice. Wide receiver Golden Tate. And if all of you have an IR slot, you can pick up Percy Harvin, who was acquired from the Vikings this year. And the St. Louis Rams. We have Sam Bradford as the quarterback. We have Darrell Richardson as the running back. And there is Isaiah Peed, too. It sounds like Darrell Richardson is probably going to start. We have Chris Givens as a wide receiver. We have Tavon Austin, who is a wide receiver, who's a rookie wide receiver. And then we have tight end Jared Cook, acquired from the Tennessee Titans. So now I will be telling you about the AFC North, starting with the Baltimore Ravens. Quarterback is Joe Flacco. The running back is Ray Rice, and his backup is Bernard Pierce. And now last year, Bernard Pierce had about 30% of the carries on the team. So Ray Rice is getting older, so you might want to be careful. Wide receiver is Torrey Smith and Jacoby Jones. Tight end is Ed Dixon. And now on to the Cincinnati Bengals. We have quarterback Andy Dalton. We have running back Benjarvis Green Ellis. And then Giovanni Bernard looks like he could have some running potential this year in the NFL league. And then we have wide receiver AJ Green and wide receiver Mohamed Sanu. And then tight end Jermaine Gresham and Tyler Eifert could be emerging as a tight end this year. We'll never know. But just keep your eye out for Tyler Eifert. And then for the Cleveland Browns, I think they have a good chance this year, making it pretty far. We got the Cleveland Browns. Quarterback is Brandon Whedon. Running back Trent Richardson. Wide receiver Greg Little. Wide receiver Josh Gordon. And tight end Jordan Cameron, who is a hot draft this year. He's moving up in the drafts, and a lot of people haven't heard about him yet. So just keep your eye out for him. And now on to the NFC North. I'm going to start with Chicago Bears. Quarterback Jay Cutler. We have running back Matt Forte, and Michael Bush will be their goal line hoarder. Wide receiver Brandon Marshall, wide receiver Elishon Jeffrey, and then tight end Martellus Bennett. And then with the Detroit Lions, we have Matthew Stafford, running back Reggie Bush, wide receiver Kelvin Johnson, wide receiver Nate Burleson, and I think you should keep an eye on this guy named Ryan Broyles, who is a wide receiver as well. Green Bay Packers, quarterback Aaron Rodgers, running back Dwan Harris. But I really like Eddie Lacy going into the start of this season, but they also have James Stark and Alex Green. Green Bay has usually been a running back by committee, but we don't know what's going to happen this year, so just keep an eye out. Wide receiver Jordy Nelson, wide receiver Randall Cobb, and wide receiver James Jones. And now Jordy Nelson did have some sort of minor surgery, and then Randall Cobb had some minor bicep surgery, so you might want to keep an eye out on those guys too. And they also have tight end Jermichael Finley. Now with the Minnesota Vikings, we have Christian Ponder as a QB, but I really don't think he's going to be starting that long in Minnesota anymore. I think Castle might be starting by sometime this year. We have running back Adrian Peterson, and then we have wide receiver Greg Jennings, wide receiver Jerome Simpson, and then I really like the two picks we got. We have Cordero Patterson, who we drafted this year, and then last year we picked up Jarius Wright. I like both of those two as an emerging wide receivers. Just keep an eye out. Maybe if you're in a dynasty league and you need to draft, I think they're worth a look at least. Tight end Kyle Rudolph. He was the most targeted tight end in the league last year in the red zone. That's an interesting stat for you. And now for the AFC South, we have the Houston Texans, quarterback Matt Schaub. We have running back Arian Foster, and his backup is Ben Tate. You're going to want to know that. You pretty much had to handcuff him almost every year you have him. We have wide receiver Andre Johnson. We have wide receiver Keyshawn Martin. But I really like DeAndre Hopkins this year as a wide receiver who was drafted. And then we have tight end Owen Daniels. And then for the Indianapolis Colts, we have quarterback Andrew Luck. We have running back Vic Pollard. But they also acquired Ahmad Bradshaw. And I kind of like him this year going into the Colts offense. I think he's a better runner than Vic Pollard, but he's just always injury prone. We have wide receiver Reggie Wayne. We have wide receiver Darius Hayward-Bay. And then I really like T.Y. Hilton. A lot of people don't know who he is, but he started coming around last year with quite a bit of fantasy points. And then we have tight end Dwayne Allen, who is a red zone target. And then we also have tight end Kobe Fleener. But Dwayne Allen is going to be the guy if you want a tight end on this team. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars next. We have quarterback Blaine Gabbert. We have running back Maurice Jones-Drew, and you're going to want to know his backup is Justin Forsett. And then we have wide receiver Cecil Shorts and wide receiver Justin Blackman. Now, Justin Blackman is suspended for the first 4 games of the season. And then we also have tight end Mercedes Lewis. And now with the Tennessee Titans, we have quarterback Jake Locker. We have running back Chris Johnson. And they also acquired Sean Green, who is probably going to do the same thing like Michael Bush in Chicago. He's going to vulture for some touchdowns maybe. Then we have wide receiver Nate Washington and wide receiver Kenny Britt. But you can also watch out for Kendall Wright, who could emerge as a wide receiver in that offense. And then we also have tight end Delaney Walker, because Jared Cook went to the St. Louis Rams. And now on to the last division, the NFC South. We have the Atlanta Falcons with Matt Ryan as quarterback. The running back is Steven Jackson. We have wide receiver Julio Jones, wide receiver Roddy White, tight end Tony Gonzalez. And they also have another wide receiver, Harry Douglas there. He's probably never going to play or never going to get a lot of looks. But we also have tight end Tony Gonzalez there. And then we have Carolina Panthers. We have quarterback Cam Newton. We have running back D'Angelo Williams. But they also have Mike Tolbert in the backfield, too, who might steal some goal line looks. We have wide receiver Steve Smith, wide receiver Brandon LaFell, and then tight end Greg Olsen. Now for the New Orleans Saints, we have quarterback Drew Brees, and the running back has usually been by committee, but we have Pierre Thomas, Mark Ingram, and Darren Sproles has not really been much of a running back out of the backfield, but he's been more of a pass catcher. Wide receiver Marcus Colston, wide receiver Lance Moore, but Nick Toon has been having a pretty good preseason this year, so if any one of those two guys gets hurt, Nick Toon could emerge. Then we have Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We have quarterback Josh Freeman, running back Doug Martin, wide receiver Vincent Jackson, wide receiver Mike Williams, and tight end Luke Stocker. And that will conclude it for this show of the Virgin Sportscast by Joshua Hervey. And thanks again for listening. Bye-bye.